But I want to interject with something, and I love that both Kois and Spear get the tremendous amount of collateral sharing here, but maybe we
It's
can have
unbelievable. I mean, what kind of business we've driven to them?
we can have a JBR Just Be Real conversation. So you were there for Ripe Global, our sponsor, when you came into Philadelphia, and Ripe Global is striving to create what dental school's missing. Give people the clinical reps from their operatories on lifelike models.
Awesome.
And you did an GPR, right? Or AGD? What'd you do?
AGD, yeah.
AGD. I think it's important. How important it is to be good at fundamental dentistry before you launch into Spear and Kois, because you went 5 years to, people say to me, should I do Spear next year? But they kind of can't do a crown prep in under 2 hours. It's not a judgment, it's just an observation. So if my team would please put in the Ripe Global, text Ripe to 215-543-6454. I see that as a bit of a pre-Spear and Kois experience, because the reps in dental school can be described as oftentimes pathetic. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? I
think it's genius. I think it's a great conduit, and I think that's exactly how it should be marketed, in my opinion, right? The reality of it is, I was thinking about this today, right? That no one pays attention to this, what we're giving them, right? The new patient experience. Everyone talks about all on X's and where can I go to get Invisalign training? I'm down with all that. But the reality of it is, unless you have a relationship with your patient, chances are, unless you're really insurance driven and they're just dollars driven, people aren't going to accept treatment anyway. So there's a couple things going on. One is that a lot of young dentists think they have to do everything right away, which is crazy, because there's so much social media and pressure now that other friends are doing this and doing that. I just feel like that's challenging, right? There are outliers who can do it. I had them in my generation even, but I think for most of us, it takes time to build your 10,000 hours in your skill set. So for me, having something like a Ripe Global, which I didn't have, would be a great conduit between getting the experience I need, getting my reps in, and then ultimately going into a place, because it is nice to be in a community and go out to Arizona and go out to Seattle and come to Philadelphia, right? And be live and in person. But it's very challenging to do that kind of stuff, and it could be very expensive.
At the end of the day, Todd, it's like, you have, I don't want to violate any HIPAA concerns, but he probably is okay. You see a very well-known chef, and in their kitchens, they don't want to teach.
Don't violate anything.
Right. They don't want to teach the basics of how to chop vegetables in a fee-for-service restaurant. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't go. Yes, if you want to be hired in a high-quality position, any high-quality clinician will want that dentist to have experience, period. Whether
because
it's
there's
GPR,
no time to teach
AGD,
the basics.
Ripe
I mean,
Global,
would you say in your office, you have 2 associates that you've connected, one on your own, also one through us, you didn't have time to teach them the basics of dentistry?
No, and in fact, even still, I hardly have time to teach them things that I wish I could teach them all the time that they're asking for, right? And so it's very challenging. You have to schedule that time. It's part of your professional development. What dentists need to understand at a young age is that you need to schedule things, right? You need to schedule vacations. You need to schedule continuing education. You need to schedule business development. You need to schedule team training, right? Because otherwise, dentistry is a business model where it's just plug and play. If you don't make time for it, your schedule will get filled and you're going to be busy running around doing occlusals or whatever, or not being comfortable. But I can tell you from experience that becomes unsatisfying after a while, and you want to glean more from your profession if you choose to. And to do that, you need to look at things comprehensively, which is Ripe and Kois and Spear.
And also, I want to add in, I connected you with one of a resident that I really just trusted and worked with. Yeah. But I also did it for a reason. When back in 2017, we were talking about this. She specifically came with skills that you don't want to do. If you were starting today, you probably would learn how to place implants, but I'm assuming you're not going to start now.
No.
So how important is it for associate dentists to also not get caught up in the 24 veneers, full mouth rehabs, and offer things like extraction bone grafting inside of these offices?
Well, wildly important. First of all, because the veneers and that sort of thing, I mean, it could be plastered online because it seems very popular, but at the end of the day, I would argue that in most practices, it is not a predominant way they're earning a living, right? And let's be honest, okay? I run a cosmetic practice supposedly, and I still only do tens of veneers a year.
Right. That's what I want to share too. And we do this next question, Todd will lead us into, we do a lot of implant cases, but we do like one big deal implant case a month. And we have one of the best dentists and Dr. Rob Slough who can do it. Right. So while it is important and while it is exciting, the fundamental implant dentistry is right.
You gotta get good at the bread and butter. It's really a single tooth crown, the single tooth implant, the single extraction. If you can do that as a general dentist, you are going to make a very, very good living, right? I mean, you just don't need to do everything. There's plenty of other people out there. Stay within your comfort zone. Don't get yourself in trouble and do the training. It's not that complicated. It's when people decide to go off on their own and be like the Wild West that you just start to get yourself into a situation where you're not going to enjoy what you do.
Patients have a hard enough time trusting the owner dentist and me or Jeff Goodman or Todd Fleischman or Darcy, and trusting a newish associate to do a big deal case is just, it's not even a situation I push them in, but they'll trust you to remove a tooth and preserve the bone. They'll trust you to fix a broken tooth with a crown. Next question.
Especially, I'm sorry to interrupt, especially when I don't do those things. Like you said, if they bring other things to the table and they want to stay in the office, well, good news. I don't do extraction bone graft, but Dr. Balji Kara does. They're like, sign me up. Sign me up.
Right. Because that's the one thing. If you can do things responsibly in your office, people don't want to leave for it. It goes for general dentistry.
You taught me that.
Yeah. Someone asked, and this is a really good question, because we do complimentary implant consults. How do you handle the time and cost of your initial appointment if you do have to punt it to someone else? Is that a big loss, or is that just part of your business model that is baked?
Yeah, I mean, I made $75 off that 45 minutes, and no harm, no foul. You know, $75 for me to BS the patient, maybe take one X-ray and a couple of pictures. I mean, this is the price of doing business. These are loss leaders, right? You won't be able to sell that big case. Let's be honest, we're in sales. You won't be able to sell that big case if you don't let them come through the door. So there's going to be some loss leaders like that. It's less than it used to be. I used to charge nothing for that and waste my time completely. Now, at least I feel like I'm getting something for my time.
Awesome. Now, 2 questions before I let you go. To the one, I know you've said it, and I know you'd think it's self-interest for me, but I'm proud of you for having 2 associates. If you just gave a top 3 list of how hiring an associate has decreased your stress, not money, how has it decreased your stress as a practice owner, hiring an associate?
I can't even verbalize anymore my desire to work with other dentists. Like, it's so high at this point. I think because I have 2 incredible associates who I'm very lucky to be around, and I love them as people besides as clinicians. But the amount of pressure it takes off of me on my day-to-day in the practice, because I do trust them and they can see my patients clinically and they can take care of them in hygiene and allow me to sit with a patient now in my schedule and be focused and present, which is such a hot button for me, there's just incredible, incredible value. Every day I think that there's not value in that associate, I remember that because I was able to spend time with the patient in front of me, I probably got another crown out of it, an Essex retainer, an implant consult, an ortho consult. I mean, there's just, you need time. Like at the end of my slide, at the end of my presentation, there's 2 finishing slides. It says, take your time, right? You need time to do good dentistry. Slow dentistry, people call it, like there's a thing, right? Slow dentistry. You got to take your time, and you can't take your time when you're doing 3 hygiene. I have a robust hygiene practice. You do 3 hygiene checks an hour. You can't take your time. So they're just absolute lifesavers. Plus, having the camaraderie and the other person to commiserate with when we're in the trenches, despite the fact that I have a fabulous practice with mostly fabulous patients and team members, there are still these outlier instances where you just feel crummy. And to have someone else next to you to feel crummy with is incredibly valuable as a clinician. I cannot stress it enough.
You should say that it's for celebratory moments and cry inside moments, right? It's
100%.
For celebratory moments and cry inside. And then also just from a truly logistics about how people matter, you're able to keep your office open on days when you're not there on vacation.
Oh my God.
You know,
unbelievable. I never thought about it. I just never really thought about it. But now 2 days a week, whenever I'm gone 6 to 8 weeks a year now. And my place is humming. And the emotional part, you it might be hard for you to remember this feeling, but you have less stress on vacation, because no matter how dentists talk tough and say, I take 2.5 weeks off weekly to go to France,
the dental practice is a circus. So when you come back from those 2.5 weeks off, no matter how much cheese you ate and how much fun you had, you're walking into that the circus is ready to eat you. And if you have someone helping you run that while you're gone, even just managing emergencies, hygiene, and answering some questions for you. So I really appreciate it. Now we're going to do something together about in-office fee-for-service practice ownership and new patient photography training. Now you go to Kois, you go to Spear, but where do you see the value? People come to your office, small group, 5 to 6 dentists. What has inspired you to want to create something like this?
I just feel like the things that you and I talk about aren't talked about that much, right? Like I just feel like what I was trying to start by explaining today and what I've talked about in philosophy of the fee-for-service, I mean, people talk about it, but there's much more psychology and philosophy in what we do than typically we're being instructed on. And I think that having the clinical skills is amazing. I've worked very hard at that. But if you don't have people skills, if you don't have a system in place for certain things, if you don't have a way to differentiate yourself from others in the community, unfortunately, because it is still a business, then it becomes a little more challenging. And while I've never really felt for a long time that I could offer that much because I've learned all these skills from other clinicians who do it better than me, one thing that I hear about from patients on a daily basis is, boy, I've never had an experience like this. And clearly there are people doing it. I know them all at Kois, right? My buddy Fred Lukoc, who's in Austin, is this most incredible dentist with an incredible new patient experience. It makes mine look like it's nothing. But I'm not here for everybody. I'm here with you to try and help a subset of young dentists, and older dentists too, by the way, who are looking to make a change or just try and practice a little bit differently now, how it can feel if you want to approach patients this way systematically with a little bit more humanity, with a little bit more psychology, with a little bit more personality. It's not going to be for everyone, but these skills are something that you can learn with our help. You've done it for years now with your...
And it's the only way to go back to the beginning of, I know I'll keep you for 5 minutes, from Brian Phillips, to reduce insurance dependency, you've got to create better relationships. The two go hand in hand. And when we went out of network with our last plan, and it was strategic, I think it's annoying to find new dentists and doctors during the pandemic, so I'm not pretending that didn't help us. But there are people just like, we're not going to leave this time. We're going to stay with you. And if there's people watching this want to decrease their dependence on dental insurance, they have to increase their relation. I mean, honestly, Todd, we go to a lot of restaurants, we do a lot of nice things. Some dentists, you can't just say, I'm going to go out of network and do the same thing you've been doing, right? I mean,
absolutely not. No, it's a major problem. You're going to lose value there. You have to have a different type of service. I mean, I tell my team on a daily basis, do not forget, unfortunately or fortunately, we're in sales. It is a thing. We're selling health, but we have to sell it to people. And it's all about our positive approach, right? It's all about our service. It's all about our service. People stay for service. They love spending money and feeling like they're getting something extra, right? But if you give them nothing, even if you take your insurance and then you don't take their insurance, forget it, man.
I listened to a great podcast I sent you, this guy who was talking about, he picked someone for the windows in his house. They weren't the cheapest windows, and he wasn't even sure if they were the best windows, but he liked the person the best. And then when he had a problem, they fixed it for him. The last thing I want to ask you about is, you have kindly said, Paul, thanks for bringing these people like Jason Smith into Philadelphia. So even though you're a top chef dentist too, why do you always block your schedule and just put yourself in the room with Jason? Like these dentists who say, I don't know if I have time to see someone like Jason. I might have seen something on Crowns before. You always say, I'm blocking my schedule and I'm just sitting in the room with Jason Smithson. Why do you do that?
Well, as you get older, and I'm 45 now, Paulie, right? You start to learn that when you have opportunities to see people who are legends, who are clearly at the highest level of your profession, to not surround yourself and try and mind meld with them on any level is ridiculous, right? And, in this picture, you can see Mitch sitting in the picture. Mitch is one of the best dentists I know. He's got me by 10 years, and he still comes to everything because he recognizes these are incredible opportunities. And for people to think, this is a guy who teaches at Spear 4 times a year, and you get him as part of his travels to come into Philadelphia and speak to our private group, like at a fee, by the way, at a price point that is a fourth of what Spear costs. So I just don't, it's hard for me. I take umbrage, right, with people who don't take some time for themselves and recognize that when you learn from these people, you become better.
Right.
even if you don't do anything else except for sit in the room with them.
And that's why I got your stuff on. I have this hat from Jeff Goodman's Spruce Shooters, 1% Better thing. The last thing I'll ask is, what is branding, right? It's a popular phrase, but we have relationships with brands to see that. And I love putting this sweatshirt on. I text you when Tilly's laying me on me. You wear that under your scrub for Super Dentist Boost, Jeff's stuff. And it's more than just a quality piece of swag. It's more than just something that's comfortable. What makes you as a customer just feel good about wearing other people's brands that you love? And then how do you think dentists can capitalize on that? Because I don't think dentists have done that for decades, right? Now we can make things. Darcy just texted me at 6:30 a.m. Darcy Naveau.
Darcy,
I want to make some of that swag like you do. Tell just in a fun wrap up, why do you think that's so important?
I'll tell you what, first of all, just branding, right? But also like patients love it. It's an extension of you. It's an extension of your practice. You can't buy cheap stuff either, right? High quality t-shirt, cool graphic, cool logo, 47 hat. Like, everything we do is a reflection of my brand, right? And many years ago, I was like, boy, it'd be cool to have my own stuff. And you realize like, it's not that expensive to buy some pieces, give them to your friends, and then ultimately have your community around town recognize it as a brand. And it also makes you feel good because my team literally this year was like, what are we getting for the holidays? Like last year was winter, like Carhartt logoed hats, very cool. The sweatshirt you're wearing was a couple years ago during COVID. The hat was the summer. And so all of a sudden you're walking around town, handing out hats, team members are wearing them. They're fabulous. I don't know. I just feel like, well, what Alex and Christy do at A-Best, you can connect with whomever you want, but at the end of the day, it's a reflection of who you are, what you're trying to achieve, how you want to be in the community. It can only benefit you. And yes, while you're making investments, and it's certainly easier for me now to be an established, clinician and have cash flow and not have to worry about paying bills. And I get all that, but there's so much value in just putting yourself out there as much as possible and giving back to your community that it pays incredible dividends.
I love it. And the ROI, which I call relationship opportunity to impact, is having one of my hygienists walk up to Allah Cologne with our Pennington Dental thing. And someone goes, I go to that office too. And, you said Alex and Christy from A-Best and our Nacho sponsors, you also should just, when someone does something well, you don't have to research other things because they make Jason Kelsey's Underdog brand.
Yeah,
so they're good enough for Jason Kelsey.
If they can do t-shirts for the biggest restaurateurs in town, and for the biggest football players in town, then I think they can do t-shirts for me. And by the way, give me the same attention to detail.
Yeah, I love that. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. This was awesome. I'm going to just do a little wrap up for people here. Thanks so much for being with us. I'll see you soon in person. Love what you share with us today.
All right, buddy. See you later. Always my pleasure.
Awesome job. So for those watching in here, please take the time, block this out in your calendar. Text Smithson to 215-543-6454. You're going to see Todd. You're going to see Elaine Billis. You're going to see Mitchell Rubenstein. You're going to see these amazing dentists in the audience watching Dr. Jason Smithson, learning, laughing, getting less annoyed, and most of all, feeling less alone. So go to dentalnachos.com and invest in you. Thanks so much for being here.